Good morning, everyone. I am so happy that you could join me today because we are going to make what I consider to be a very romantic three-course dinner. Here's the menu. I'm serving a warm and spicy roasted cauliflower soup for the first course, a culinary miracle known as chicken marbella for the main course, and a rich and decadent chocolate Cabernet Sauvignon cake for the grand finale. I'm happy to report that all of these dishes can be prepared at least one day ahead of time. For the roasted cauliflower soup, I need 2 heads of cauliflower florets. I will link the recipe for this roasted cauliflower soup in the description below. Now we can toss all of these cauliflower florets into a large bowl. Then I'm adding some olive oil, salt, grinds of pepper, and about a teaspoon of curry powder. Curry powder will give this soup nice, warm quality. And then I need to mix all of these ingredients, which I can do very easily with my impeccably clean hands. Then we can throw all of the florets onto a baking tray. And my oven has preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to roast this cauliflower until it begins to caramelize. That will take about 20 minutes. While the cauliflower is roasting, we need to dice up an onion. We need onions, celery, and a potato for the soup base. We also need about a ½ cup's worth of diced celery. I already have some celery that you and I grew together in last summer's garden and that we blanched and froze. So I'm going to use this. So now all I need to do is peel a russet potato. Actually, this is a Kennebec potato, or Kennebec, that you and I grew together in last summer's garden. The potato is going to thicken the soup, so we don't have to make a roux or add any cornstarch. I need to cook the onions and the celery in my Dutch oven. A little olive oil, onion, celery, we can cover this pot until the onions soften up. That will take from 8 to 10 minutes. Once the onions are translucent, go ahead and add the potato, plus 4 cups of either chicken or vegetable stock. I'm using vegetable stock. Then we can boost the heat and bring this to a simmer. And once this achieves a simmer, I will cover the pot and let the potatoes cook until they are perfectly tender. That will take about 15 minutes. Once the potatoes are fork tender, add the cauliflower, the roasted cauliflower. Now the cauliflower is already thoroughly cooked, so we need only to warm the florets. Now we can ladle all of this goodness into a blender. I might have to do this in 2 batches. And then we want to blitz this to a smooth puree. The smell's just wonderful. I just rinsed out my Dutch oven because I will want to return all of the pureed soup to the Dutch oven. Now, I want to taste the soup to determine whether or not it needs more salt or more curry powder. Ooh, this is very nice. And I want to give it a little more salt and a little more curry powder, just for a curry powder kick. Stir that in. Now, if the soup is too thick for your liking, you can always thin it out with more vegetable stock. You could use chicken stock for this soup, but since our main course is chicken marbella, I didn't want to overdo the chicken. And our first course soup is made. I'm going to let this cool to room temperature, and then I will cover the pot and store this in the refrigerator. So you can make this soup 3, 4, maybe even 5 days ahead of time. On to the chicken marbella main course. Now, chicken marbella is a Mediterranean type dish. It's chicken in a highly flavorful marinade. My friend Victoria made this for a dinner party about a year ago. We all raved about the dish. And I made it the following week for a dinner party, and my guests raved about the dish. And I think you and your guests will rave about this dish too. So I have 12 skin-on, bone-in chicken thighs here, and I'm arranging them in one layer in a enameled cast iron braising dish. But you could use any roasting pan here. Now we can make the marinade. I forgot to tell you that the recipe for chicken marbella comes from the Silver Palette cookbook. And I can link this cookbook in the description box below. So the marinade starts with an entire head of minced garlic. I'm using 3 of the garlic pucks that you and I made together from homegrown garlic. In you go. Then we need a 1/4 cup of dried oregano, or oregano. Two tablespoons of kosher salt. I know that sounds like a lot of salt, but it is the correct amount. Grinds of black pepper. A 1/2 cup or 120 mils of red wine vinegar. A 1/2 cup, or again, 120 mils of olive oil. Then we need to whisk all of these ingredients together. The recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of Spanish olives. I'm going to use, 12 to 14 olives. You can really use as many olives as you want. Then we need capers and all of their juices from a 3.5 ounce or 65 gram container. And 1 cup or a big handful of pitted prunes, which are nothing more than dried plums. Give this a little stir. And then we can pour this glorious mixture right on top of the chicken. I use a spatula to gently lift up each chicken piece so that some of the marinade goes underneath the chicken. Now all we have to do is cover the dish and refrigerate it for 24 hours. This has to be one of the best make-ahead dishes ever invented. And before we bake this off tomorrow, I will give the chicken a little sprinkling of brown sugar and 1 cup of white wine. And I plan to serve the chicken with a side of roasted Brussels sprouts, but we will do that tomorrow. I want you to know that I thoroughly disinfected my workstation after making the chicken marbella. So now we can move on to the cake. It's a chocolate Cabernet Sauvignon cake. I think this cake is the perfect Valentine's date. It's dark and rich and exquisitely perfumed with Cabernet Sauvignon wine. And the first thing we need to do is preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. Then we have to put together the dry ingredients. So I need 2 cups or 260 grams of all-purpose flour, and I always weigh out my flour. Then I need a ½ teaspoon of salt, 1 cup or 128 grams of a good quality cocoa powder. This is unsweetened cocoa powder. And 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking soda. All we have to do is whisk these dry ingredients together. I'm going to mix the wet ingredients in my stand mixer. You could use electric beaters or even just a large bowl and a stout spoon. Before we mix the wet ingredients, I need to open my bottle of wine. And I'm not actually using Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm using a Claret, which is pretty much the same thing. It's a dry red wine. You could even use a Côte d'Aron wine here. I should probably go ahead and measure this out. I need 1 1/4 cups of wine, which is 275 mils. The rest of this wine is for the baker. So in the mixing bowl, I will add 1 cup or 227 grams of butter that has softened to room temperature. And on the subject of butter, I have noticed that really good quality butter, this is Kerrygold, tends to soften completely in just a matter of hours, whereas the store brands and certain national brands of butter that are commonly found in supermarkets just don't ever completely soften. So if at all possible, use a good quality butter here. Then I need 1 3/4 cups or 350 grams of regular granulated sugar. And we will cream the butter and sugar together at medium speed until the mixture turns light and fluffy. That will take about 5 minutes. Now we can beat in 2 large eggs, one at a time. Then I need 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. This is the extract that you and I made together. This looks wonderful. Now at low speed, I'm going to add the flour mixture and the red wine in alternating additions, beginning with the flour and ending with the flour. You really only want to mix until the flour disappears into the batter. I do want to give this batter a good final mix just with my spatula. I bake this cake in a 10-inch bundt pan, and I'm going to grease the pan with baking spray. Baking spray contains flour. I think I should do this over this sink. And we can add the batter to the pan. Smooth the top a little. And into the oven it goes until a skewer inserted in the center of the cake comes out clean. That will take about 45 minutes. This cake not only looks fabulous, it smells fabulous. Very chocolatey. I'm going to let this cool in the pan for about 10 minutes, and then we can unmold it. I think this has cooled enough. We can unmold it. Say a prayer. It worked. It is gorgeous, except there is one area where I think the butter was not fully incorporated. No problem, because I am going to cover this with confectioner's sugar once the cake has cooled completely. And since I won't be serving this until tomorrow, what I will do once the cake has cooled is cover it with a bowl so the cake doesn't dry out. We had a very productive day. We made our first course soup. We assembled our main course chicken marbella. We made our dessert. Now tomorrow, all we need to do is go to the flower shop, and then when we come home, we will arrange the flowers. We can set the table and serve the dinner. Sweet dreams, my friends, and I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. Our little dinner party is tonight, and I have very little to do today. I do want to cut up some Brussels sprouts that we will serve alongside the chicken marbella. And I want you to know that that chocolate red wine cake we made yesterday taunted me all last night. Every time I walked into the kitchen, I could smell the delicious perfume of that cake, and I really wanted to tuck into it. I even thought of making a second cake so I could eat the one that we made yesterday, but I summoned all of my willpower and I left that cake alone. And I do have an idea for fixing the little boo-boo on the cake. But we will get to that in just a moment. Olive oil, which will help the Brussels sprouts to caramelize in the oven. Salt. Pepper. And toss. Then we can throw these onto a baking sheet. I will pop this into the refrigerator, and then it will be ready to rock and roll when I am. I need to wash my hands, and then we will get started on that cake. So here is the cake. I put a bowl over this overnight so that the cake would not dry out. And here's a little boo-boo area, which I am fairly convinced is from the excess baking spray that I used. So that spray must have pooled somewhere on the bottom of this bundt pan. And I think a good idea is to take, if you use the spray, is to use a brush to even it out all over the bundt pan. Nevertheless, this cake is absolutely delicious, and I think we can cover this little problem area with a pink glaze. I'm putting a rack on a parchment-lined baking tray. And then I want to transfer this cake to the rack. Confectioner's sugar. Tiny amount of water. So I'm looking for a thick but pourable glaze. I'm using red food coloring, and my goal is to create a lovely pink glaze. I'm going to start with just a very small amount. So this took only a tiny, tiny amount of red food coloring. So now we can pour this all over the cake, starting with the little patchy area. I'm very happy with this cake and its pink glaze, and it's appropriate for Valentine's Day. While the glaze sets up, I'm going to clean up my workstation, and then we can head to the local flower shop. I use this landscape fabric to contain the mess whenever I arrange flowers. And I think we should make the arrangement in this old soup tureen. I don't need the lid, I don't need the ladle. I have some floral foam that I soaked. I think these colors will work very well in the dining room. I'm starting this arrangement with sprigs of boxwood from my garden. The boxwood will hide the floral foam in the soup tureen. I think this arrangement looks respectable enough. I'm going to set it over here on the counter, and then I will clean up my workstation, and we can go into the dining room to set the table. About 1 hour before my guests were due to arrive, I preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. Then I removed the cover from the chicken marbella and used a spatula to gently loosen the chicken pieces. As directed in the recipe, I poured 1 cup or 120 mils of a dry white wine all around the edge of the pan and then sprinkled the top with 1 cup of brown sugar. I put the marbella in the oven uncovered and set the timer for 1 hour. The nice thing about chicken marbella is that it can be kept warm in a 200 degree Fahrenheit oven for 1 full hour after you have baked it off. Just be sure to cover the dish. I roasted the Brussels sprouts in a 400 degree Fahrenheit oven for 20 minutes. Then I kept the sprouts warm until serving time. As a bed for the chicken marbella, I prepared a pot of minute rice. Minute rice is already par-cooked. You simply use equal parts rice and boiling water or stock and then cover the pot. The rice is ready in just 5 minutes. About 30 minutes before my guests arrived, I put the roasted cauliflower soup on the lowest possible flame. Also, I sliced up a baguette to accompany the soup. I think this cake deserves a nice little cake stand. My guests are here. We've been enjoying drinks and little nibbles in the parlor. I'm able to join my guests because this whole dinner is already made. I plated the soup in the kitchen and garnished each serving with a splash of cream and a sprinkling of fresh herbs. I served a crisp white wine alongside the soup course. The chicken marbella was out of this world delicious. We all swooned over the incredibly tender chicken, plus the prunes, the capers, the Spanish olives, and the marvelous marinade. Chicken marbella is a true culinary miracle, my friends. I served a full-bodied red wine along with the chicken. On to the cake. This red wine chocolate subject was pretty to look at and divine to eat. The cake was rich and chocolatey and the perfect ending to my meal. My friends, this was an incredibly successful early Valentine's Day dinner, and it was incredibly easy to do. My guests have all left, and my only work now is to load up the dishwasher. Thank you so much for spending time with me today as we created this make-ahead menu and we arranged these flowers, we set the table, and we served the meal. I hope you will try one or all of these recipes at your own dinner party. And I want you to know that your companionship means the world to me. I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, please take excellent care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, friends.